Hello, I'm Corey Rafe-Stenger with the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America. As part of an ongoing series to help you navigate through the life insurance buying process, the next segment will help you determine which type of life insurance works best for you: term, whole life, universal life, or variable universal life. In less than 10 minutes, by simply evaluating the importance of price, cost, value, and risk to you as it relates to life insurance, you'll finally be able to make an informed decision. We've been talking with industry consultant Dick Weber, who after a 42-year career in the life insurance industry, now works on behalf of consumers and their advisors, helping them better understand, purchase, and then manage their life insurance policies effectively. Dick and his business partner, Chris House, recently wrote a research paper entitled Life Insurance as an Asset Class. And we've asked Dick to discuss some of its findings we felt viewers would find useful. Dick, because of your focus on consumer issues, I imagine you're often asked, what kind of life insurance will work best for me? What do you tell them?
Corey, in my experience, what most customers mean when they ask that question is the price issue we addressed in the Buy Term and Invest the Difference video. But price is really only one of 4 primary attributes in life insurance, and as an advisor, I've always felt that the critical starting point is moving people off of an exclusive focus on price and on to finding the optimum balance of all 4 factors. So in addition to price, meaning how much premium flows out of my pocket, we also look at cost, which weighs my outlay against the cash value that comes back into my pocket. The third attribute is the potential for naturally increasing death benefit. And finally, the fourth attribute is how accessible is the cash value. These attributes are compared to the risk factor of the investments which support the policy. And if all this looks familiar, it's because they're very similar to the factors we deal with in optimizing investment portfolios. And what this underscores is that just like a single investment instrument, a single style of insurance will never be the best for all circumstances or for every client's preferences. We can assess the major permanent insurance policy styles against these 4 attributes. No lapse and minimally funded universal life policies have some of the lowest prices, and while there's little risk for no lapse, minimally funded universal life has considerable risk if you don't pay enough into it. But they're also the weakest in the value categories. Variable universal life, on the other hand, can have good value, but it also has the highest risk factor. And while participating whole life is priced higher than other policy styles, it's very low risk, and it's the best of the policy styles in the value category.
Remembering your diversification discussion in the Modern Portfolio video, it sounds like you're suggesting that the insurance buyer may want to purchase some of each and actually build a life insurance policy portfolio.
Corey, that can in fact make sense. Of course, everything depends on the individual buyer's situation, but our research suggests that when the total amount of life insurance is greater than, I would say, $1 or $2 million, a diversified portfolio of policies is quite feasible.
So how would you go about designing an insurance portfolio?
Well, first, just as you do in developing an investment portfolio, you have to align your policy choices with your risk tolerance. And for that, we've developed a quantitative measure of risk we call a risk index. A risk index below 4 is conservative, and a risk index above 12 is very aggressive. We assign a risk index of 0 to no lapse guarantee policies because premiums, cash values, and death benefits are all fully guaranteed by the carrier, subject to the claims paying ability of the insurance company. Participating whole life also has a very low risk index of 1.8. It's not 0. And that's because the dividends in whole life depend on several factors, including fluctuating earnings and having the board of directors approve the current dividend scale, but all the other values are guaranteed. At the other extreme, a VUL policy invested entirely in an S&P 500 subaccount has a risk index of 15. For the sake of simplicity, we're going to restrict ourselves to these 3 policy styles. Most insurance purchasers are focused on either price or on value. And in No Lapse Guarantee, we have a style with great price appeal. Participating whole life has very strong value, and variable universal life also has strong value, but with a much higher risk factor. The fourth major style, ordinary universal life, doesn't have any one remarkable strength, so we're going to exclude it in the following example. We've sorted the mixes in order of risk index from lowest to highest. So let's build a hypothetical insurance portfolio. Let's suppose our buyer has a risk tolerance in the 7 to 8 range, which is about in the middle of the 0 to 15, and has indicated a desire to focus on value rather than price. We run down the matrix to the specified risk tolerance, and we find 5 possibilities in that range, with percentages of whole life ranging from 0 to 60%, and no lapse universal life ranging from 0 to 50%, which are fairly dramatic ranges. Variable universal life has a much narrower range of 40 to 50%. Since our purchaser is focused on value, we look for the highest percentage in the whole life column, and that gives us a risk index of 7.08 with a mix of 60% whole life, no lapse, and 40% variable universal life. This would maximize value and long-term death benefit growth. 60% of the portfolio is guaranteed, and 40% is associated with volatility and risk, but with the potential of long-term reward. On the other hand, if price were the dominant benefit, we would focus on the NLG column and choose a risk index of 7.5 with a mix of no whole life, 50% no lapse, and 50% variable universal. You'd still have half the portfolio with guarantees, and there's conceptual upside potential with the variable universal life, but the development of cash value is going to be entirely up to the risk side of this policy portfolio, and that may or may not be acceptable to you. We emphasize that this matrix process is just a start. It gets you oriented into some practical considerations with which you can then start applying subjective reasoning. For example, when you get a result that intuitively doesn't feel right, feel free to adjust to something that does feel right, simply staying reasonably within the specified risk index.
I think this makes sense to me. At least it gives me an objectively based process to start exploring the types of insurance that feel right, and seems to address how to reconcile all those percentages with how I feel about the technical answer. What about those consumers who would today judge themselves to be more in the conservative risk index?
Well, a year ago, I wouldn't have guessed that so many sophisticated investors would have become so conservative. So let's look at the conservative end of the matrix. A consideration for value would suggest a portfolio of 80% participating whole life, no lapse guarantee, and 20% variable universal life to provide just a little bit of additional upside potential. On the other hand, if price were the dominant consideration, we look at maximizing the percentage of NLG, and you can see that that consists of 70% no lapse, 0% whole life, and 30% variable universal. In both examples, you'll note that participating whole life is emphasized when seeking what we've been calling value, which is access to cash value and the potential for naturally increasing death benefit. A focus on price, on the other hand, often eliminates whole life in favor of minimal cash values and low outlay. And I think that's pretty consistent with our research and thinking about different policy styles and features and benefits compared to the consumer's desire for price or value. We'd of course want to point out that especially focusing on participating whole life, this also allows for the integration of the insurance portfolio into allocation considerations of the client's broader investment portfolio. I'd like to conclude this discussion with a comment that designing a life insurance portfolio is subject to the buyer's circumstances and preferences as to the essential qualities, features, and benefits of different styles of policies. If you balance the portfolio of policies within the individual's risk profile, consideration of low price, low cost, cash value accessibility, and potential for increasing death benefit, the resulting portfolio of policies will provide financial growth and security over the long term, consistent with the client's objectives and risk tolerance.
Once again, Dick, thank you for sharing your research and guidance. As I think about finding the right policy or policies to fulfill my long-term uses of life insurance, I appreciate your insight. Of course, each individual has their own unique circumstances that should be evaluated, but I can say with confidence that speaking with a Guardian representative will help achieve the life insurance strategy that may work best for you. For more information, please ask your Guardian representative for the brochure entitled Life Insurance as an Asset Class.